today we have a guest with us, and her name is Lisa Golden, and she is with the state of Texas. And I believe, Lisa, you are a vocational rehab counselor, correct?
I am a certified rehabilitation
Hmm.
counselor, work as the diabetes program specialist for.
Ah, awesome. So she's going to be speaking with us today about some best practices for diabetes management uh, related to diet, nutrition, and also other techniques to help you manage your diabetes. So, Lisa, I'll let you have the floor, and you're welcome to take it from here if you'd like.
Thank you so much. I appreciate this opportunity to speak to everybody. I have been working in diabetes since 1995, but 10 years ago when I came to VR, I had to learn to look at things a little bit different. And I love the creativity, I love the problem solving. And it's just been a fantastic journey, learning to work with the individuals that often the medical community is not very good at helping. So it's been an exciting journey and an exciting learning process. And I met the most wonderful people. And you'll enjoy Kevin and his story. He's my office mate. He's in the cube next to me when we get to work. So he's got a lot of great stories, and you'll really enjoy him next week. So of course, I don't know y'all, so I don't know where you are on your journey, but I will give you a little bit of my definitions and philosophy to start out with. First of all, being healthy is important for everybody. So it really doesn't matter if you have diabetes or you don't. Healthy behaviors are healthy behaviors. So I'm not a believer, there's no such thing as a diabetic diet. There's healthy eating that everybody should do. So it's not fair to tell somebody you shouldn't be eating that when everybody else is eating that. If we need to kind of give up on those foods. A Pop-Tart is not healthy for anybody, not nonetheless for somebody with diabetes. Now, having said that, I just called out a specific food. In general, I do not like to criticize, what people are eating. I think it is, especially for adults, you have the right to eat what you want and to make informed choices would be my goal. But we all have those little things that we love that we're not willing to give up. And how do we build them in to a healthy diet? Because just because I'm not willing to give this one thing up doesn't mean that I'm not willing to adjust my healthy eating in other areas or be more active or take care of myself in other ways. So I am a big believer in let's work with it. I know for myself and my own health, it's been a journey and a process. So there are things that I would not have been willing to give up 20 years ago that wasn't so hard to do 5 years ago. And so, it's about learning where I'm at and why I had to identify certain things that I had issues with myself, and I had to kind of do a little soul searching about why those were important to me or not important to me. And so I think we all have to find our own way. So my attitude is we can work with you wherever you are in that journey. As far as diabetes is concerned, I look at it very simply. It's just the inability to process the foods that you eat into the energy you need in order to survive and to live. So, there's several types of diabetes. The two primary ones, type 1 is where your body physically does not make any insulin. So you must inject insulin in order to live. And, you know, insulin was a wonderful finding, discovery, and um, it has saved millions and millions of lives. It's just, um, you know, before we would have just thought about it for type 1. Now it's really saving people with type 2 as well. And I don't like people that put down insulin, because it is just replacing the hormone that your body has made. And one of the worst groups that have put down insulin is sometimes medical practitioners, because they threaten people, or have in the past threatened people with it. If you don't behave, if you don't do what I tell you to do, then you're going to go on insulin. I'm going to put you on insulin. And it shouldn't be a threat to give your body whatever it's missing. So, you know, I always use the example that I'm anemic, and I do my best with healthy eating to meet my protein needs and get my body the things that it needs. But the reality is I'm anemic, and sometimes I need help from the doctor in order to overcome that. And I shouldn't feel guilty because I need a certain treatment, or I need something besides, you know, what's available iron wise in the vitamin section at my store. So that's the way I feel about insulin. Is it's just giving your body, helping your body with what it needs. Now, type 2 diabetes has two issues. By the time you get type 2 diabetes, you have lost at least 50% and likely more of the beta cells on your pancreas. And the beta cells are the cells that actually produce insulin. And so you want to think about that you're actually missing something that your body needs. So usually right before, well, actually years before you actually get diagnosed with diabetes, your pancreas is working as hard as it can, trying to shoot out as much insulin it can to keep your blood sugars normal. And so often when people are diagnosed, either just in the hospital or sometimes even for 3-6 months after, they may be immediately put on insulin. And again, they shouldn't feel any shame for that. What they're trying to do, what the doctors are trying to do, is give your pancreas a break. It's been overworking for years. So how can we support the pancreas so maybe it can heal a little bit and function a little bit better? So again, people think of it, oh, I must have really screwed up. No, your pancreas is broken. That's, you know, that's what we need to do in order to help you out, is to take insulin. And I know this is probably, I don't have a lot of information about this new $35 Medicare paying for insulin. I'm kind of interested to see what the actual rules are around that, because I hope that they're paying for some of the newer high quality insulins, because we're lucky to live in 2020, where we have way more than insulin to manage our diabetes, but also that the insulins that we do have, there's less low blood sugar, it's easier for us to inject them and use them. It really is a much better situation that we're in. It's not that the insulins that we had back in the 1980s were bad, but you know, it's like saying it's not like the phones were bad back then, but wouldn't you prefer to use an iPhone today or some kind of smartphone than what we had back then? You know, they work and you can talk to your person, whoever you want to speak to, but you know, I think we deserve to have the best technology today. And so it'll be interesting to see what that $35 insulin actually covers. So the insulin is one of the issues. So your pancreas and your broken pancreas with type 2. The other issue is what we call insulin resistance. So if you think of insulin kind of being the key that opens up your cells to let the glucose in so that you can use it as fuel, sometimes if the key doesn't work, if the cell will not open up, then it's a problem. So a lot of that can happen because of excess weight, or some of the foods that we eat, or just your body is not opening up. And so we can do things like, that's one of the reasons that being active is one of the best things you can do for your diabetes. It's not just about building your overall strength, but if you're hungry, you'd open the door for me if I brought you food. So that's what we want to do, is make your cells want to open up. And so insulin resistance and the lack of insulin are both problems with type 2 diabetes. There's a lot of blaming that, oh, you ate too many ding dongs and Dr. Peppers, and that's why you have type 2 diabetes. And I know that all of us could practice more health skills, but nobody's perfect at that. And the thing you need to know about diabetes also is that it's a genetic disease. It's somewhere in your line. And so, when you are exposed to something genetically, and then you also participate in unhealthy behaviors, all of those things can come together. So, Abraham Lincoln said, the best way to predict the future is to create it. And that's what I believe about diabetes management, or just management of your health, is if you want to know what's going to happen in the future, hey, what you put in place today is what's going to be important. So the other thing I would like to say is that there are 42 factors that can impact your blood sugar. And we tend to think of food first. So health professionals, or even you, might just ask, as soon as you see a quote unquote bad number, the first thing you do is, what did I eat? And sometimes that's the culprit, but it's not the only culprit. So I do want to talk a little bit about some of those factors and stuff. So I am a member of the Association of Diabetes Care and Education Specialists. I also am the co-chair of the Disability Community of Interest for them. And I really appreciate how they take the science of diabetes. And I don't know about you, but reading scientific reports is not my favorite things, but we can take those and put them into real life practice with that association. And it makes a huge difference. So I'm going to go over their 7 self-care behaviors, and we'll talk about some of the things that they focus on. And again, I think these are for everybody, not just for people with diabetes. So I'll give you the list. The 7 self-behaviors are healthy eating, being active, monitoring, taking your medication, problem solving, healthy coping, and reducing your risks. So let's start with healthy eating. That's usually the thing that people are most interested in. And I think healthy eating is just making sure that your body gets the macro and micronutrients. So your macronutrients are things like carbohydrates, fats, protein, and water. Those are your macronutrients. And we don't think of things like that. Right now, carbohydrates get vilified. Fats in the past have been vilified. Proteins have pluses and minuses, but we need to remember that those are all your most important nutrients for your body. Carbohydrate is, or particularly glucose, is the fuel that your brain uses in order to think with. It won't use fructose or lactose or proteins or fats or anything else to think with, it likes to convert those to glucose so that you can have that process. So that's why sometimes when your blood sugar is low, or if your blood sugar is high, then you can't think straight. You might not be able to learn. You might not be able to remember things. You might be a little bit confused. It's because you literally are not giving your brain the fuel that it needs. It can change all of those other kinds of sugars like fructose and lactose, or it can change proteins and fats into glucoses, sorry. But you know, that takes a process for your body. So sometimes we need readily available forms of glucose. So carbohydrates, we need to think of them as a good thing and not a bad thing. Fats, we need to think of them as a good thing and not a bad thing. Proteins are a good thing, not a bad thing. Water is a very good thing, not a bad thing. And I know that water can get a little bit boring, and you need to find a way to be able to consume the water that you need without it being in the forms of sodas or coffee all the time. You need some water, and getting water from food like vegetables or fruits is also a great thing. But we need to think of our macronutrients. Our micronutrients are our vitamins and minerals that we get by eating a variety of food. So, you know, there's a saying out there that says, eat the rainbow. And I'm a big believer in that. I think you need a variety of food over your week. It doesn't mean that you have to have a huge variety over your day. If you have several different colors of food over your day, it makes a difference. There is different vitamins and minerals in different colored foods. So a regular potato versus a sweet potato is going to have a little bit different makeup. So even though there are still starches, they're still potatoes, they have a little bit of different vitamins and minerals. Same thing, broccoli versus cauliflower. They're going to have some slightly different things, even though in a lot of ways they're very similar. Strawberries versus blackberries. So it's a matter of thinking about, okay, I had an apple yesterday. Maybe I have an orange or some strawberries today. Just something over the week so that I get a variety of foods in my body, because each of those colors is going to give me different nutrients. So when we're thinking about things that affect blood sugar, probably the most important thing is the quantity of carbohydrates that you're consuming.
Uh-oh. Hello?
Oh, did we lose Lisa?
I think we might have.
Uh-oh. Sorry, folks, having some technical difficulties here. She's probably going to try to reconnect.
She's still on, so.
Is she still on? She's still on?
She is.
Okay. Somehow she's become muted. Is she muted, Rebecca? Or
No, she's not. I'm looking.
She just left. She's going to probably try to rejoin us.
Please stand by.
Operators are, there she is. Operators are standing by. Hold on, guys. We're going to reconnect here in a second.
Oh. We lost Rebecca, too.
Yeah. Hey, while we're waiting for them, Sean, why don't we talk just a couple of minutes about Ask the Blind Guys?
Yeah, so this afternoon at 4, we have a new monthly series that's coming up. It's going to be on the last Wednesday of the month at 4. It's called Ask the Blind Guys. It's just a chance for people to ask all those burning questions you've always had, either if it's family members or yourself or anybody that just has something they like to know about blindness. How do we do A, B, or C? How do you travel? I'm sure even though we cover a lot of topics here, there's still things people are curious about.
Oh yeah.
That will be the last Wednesday of the month at 4. We're actually working on getting an email address set up for that. And I believe when it's active, it's going to be asktheblindguys@lighthousefw.org.
Awesome.
So yeah, keep that in mind.
Rebecca is back with us, it looks like. Rebecca, is everything okay?
Yeah, I think my internet's down with all the rain and everything that's going on, so I called in from my phone.
Okay.
So sorry if I sound different. I don't know what happened. Everything just crashed.
Oh, do we have participants on with us still? We have.
Yes.
We were at
Yes.
15.
Oh, there she is.
There we
Yeah.
go.
Lisa's back.
Hello.
I don't know if I don't know. My normal internet's acting fine. So I don't know if Zoom maybe crashed for a few people. I don't know what's going on. I'm on my phone now. It's still on me log in on my desktop.
Lisa, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. And so you can
There
hear
we
me.
go.
So everybody
Yes.
got-
There
Yeah,
we go.
we're good. All
Did
right.
everybody stop, or did just me?
No, I crashed as well. I just got an error code on my computer. I called in from my phone.
Okay, that's what I just did because it wouldn't log back on my computer.
Yeah, mine either. Technology, yay.
When it works, it's great. When it doesn't work, it's, well.
Hey, Leslie,
Can
if you can
somebody
hear
tell
me,
me-
will you make me a co-host again?
I think I
Yes,
can.
we'll do that.
Oh, no, she can do it. Yeah.
Okay. So if I'm a little slower to react to things, that's because I'm on my phone, so I have to toggle a few things. So sorry about that, guys. Thank you, Leslie.
Can you tell me where I got dropped?
Let's see. You were discussing, boy.
So I was trying to discuss the quantity of carbohydrate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Do you want
that's
to pick it
right.
up from there? Go right ahead.
Yeah,
Had
you're
his hand up.
eat the rainbow. You start with, if you have an apple one day, then the next day
Yes.
you might want orange or strawberries.
Or a orange. Yeah.
Good. So you got that point. So let's talk about quantity of food, because I think portion sizing is one of the best things that we can do for managing diabetes. We don't have to, we want to be aware of how much carbohydrate we are putting in our bodies. And so carbohydrates, the foods that we really look at impacting our blood sugar are things like fruits, our dairies, our grains, and so pastas and rice. There's some things like beans and peas and corn and potatoes that have an impact on our blood sugar. Our breads, our tortillas that we love, all those kind of things. We just need to be aware of how much we are putting in at a time. So we want to kind of count how many at a serving. For most people, about 3 servings of carbohydrates is what they can handle. Some people can handle 4. And honestly, everybody's body is different. So your body might process carbohydrates, that same carbohydrate, differently from the next person. So like something, let's say a banana, which typically have been discouraged because they often have a big impact on blood sugar. But some people, that's not true for everybody. Some people are able to process a banana. So we want to just pay attention to how different foods affect our individual blood sugars. and kind of portion size those. Now, I use two things. When I teach, I often like to provide something called the meal measure. It's a plastic piece that can fit on your plate, and it's got 3 cups that are cup sizes, and then it's got a tactile mark halfway down for a half a cup. So something like pasta, we're going to have a half a cup of a serving, and so you can know that it's a half a cup. You fill up one of the half cups. Let's say you're having a salad with that. You can have a full cup of salad, no problem. So fill up the other cup with the salad. And let's say you want to have grapes, and you can fill up the other cup with grapes. And then it's got an open portion that would have your protein. Your protein is generally about a 3-ounce portion at a regular meal. And so it's got an area that you can fit your protein. And when you filled up that area, the nice thing about it is you fill it up and then you remove the meal measure from your plate, and you can see what a properly portioned plate looks like. And then you can consume that plate. After a while, you will get to know what your favorite meals actually look like when they're portioned properly. I even do things like, let's say that I'm having casserole instead. I'll just do a cup of casserole, and again, I'm fill up the other 2. Maybe I've got broccoli in another, and let's do another fruit. Maybe I decided to do some watermelon. Summer's coming. I'm going to be hungry for some watermelon. I can fill up those and again see what a properly portioned plate is. And then I'm just going to be aware of how many carbs are in there. So like if I've had casserole, did I make the casserole with some pasta in it? So I need to count the pasta. And of course the watermelon has some carbohydrate in there as well. Maybe I've got some other vegetables like corn and green beans in my casserole. So that may be another serving of carbohydrate. So I've got my 3 servings of carbohydrate, and I'm aware that that's what I'm eating. So it's important to just look at your portions and kind of count. If I'm having a sandwich for lunch, I've got 2 slices of bread. Hey, there's 2 of my carbohydrates already. So I have to think about what other carbohydrate I might be having, whether that's I decide to have chips with it, and I have to find out from the bag of chips what a portion is that gives me 1 serving of carbohydrate. A serving of carbohydrate is 15 grams if you're looking at a label. And so I would look for the 15 grams of carbohydrates, not the sugars, the carbohydrates. And so I would figure out that maybe 15 grams is 12 chips of that particular kinds of chips. But now I need to drink water. I can't have juice or something like that because I don't want to have any additional carbohydrates for that. But consistency in your meals, having a consistent number of carbohydrates really helps you make sure that when you are taking your medication, that it's going to be able to cover those things. And your body can only process so much carbohydrate at a time. So we don't want to go to the point that you're being hard on your body, but at the same time, again, carbohydrates are a nutrient. We want to go ahead and make sure that we have that nutrient in our body. The carbohydrate types can make a difference. So there is a difference whether you're eating tortillas or vegetables, or like a vegetable like a potato versus broccoli. Pretty much the non-starchy vegetables, so that's your squashes, that's your lettuces or any kind of green, your broccoli, cauliflower, cucumbers, bell pepper, onion, garlic. You can have almost unlimited of that. I mean, usually it's too big of a portion for you to actually physically eat before it has a huge impact on your blood sugar. But we do have to be very careful with the potatoes, the beans, the peas, I'm missing one in there. I can't think of what it is, but there's certain carbs that we need to be a little bit more careful with, and make sure that we're being very aware. So when we're making something to eat, if you get to the end of your meal, if you've portioned it out and you're still hungry, my go-to is vegetables. And so it really does make a difference. And if I'm hungry, I'll do something like sliced cucumber and put a little lime juice on top, and that can satisfy my crunch, and it has a lot of flavor, because sometimes those 12 chips, they ain't gonna do it for me, and I'm still hungry for some reason. I like to put vegetables on my sandwiches, so I load them up with tomatoes and onion and lettuce, and I'll put cucumber and bell pepper and you name it. That's just something that I happen to like, but that's an easy way for me to get some vegetables in my sandwiches, in my meal. Fats tend to make people with diabetes more insulin resistant. So it's something that we do want to control, but you do need to have some fats. You know, healthy snacks or healthy fats like nuts or olive oil, those are great things to go ahead and include. Avocado can be a great fat to have in your diet. Again, we just want a portion size. You don't need unlimited of those, but those are nutrients that our body needs to be healthy. You know, proteins can be a good friend. They don't proteins and fats take a while to digest, and therefore they have less of an impact on our blood sugars. So it's not that they can't be converted to glucose at all, but your body's going to go through a process, and it's better for them to have those as nutrients in a different way. But we, again, not unlimited. You know, that 24-ounce cowboy cut at the steakhouse was meant to feed a family, not an individual. So, you know, trying to think about 3 ounces of protein is about right. One of the things that I use for portion sizing, especially because I travel a lot, is my hands. So if you think of one of your hands, if it's cupped, is about a half a cup. 2 of your hands cupped together, both your hands cupped together, is about a whole cup. And your protein size is about the size of the palm of your hands without your finger and thumb. So about that thickness and about that size. So let's say you have a piece of fish and it's a little bit longer, or you take a piece of chicken and you pound it out, so you have a little piccata or something. If it's a little bit thinner, but if you thought about folding it over or cutting it in half and stacking it on top of each other, about the thickness and size of your palm of your hands is about right for proteins. So when I'm thinking about a half a cup, so if I'm thinking like rice, my hand should be able to fit over the portion of rice that I'm going to eat. Same with the beans. Let's say that I'm having strawberries. Well, you know, 5 strawberries will probably fit in my, you know, regular size strawberries, not those little tiny ones, but regular size or huge ones. About 5 strawberries will probably fit in both of my hands, and that'll make a cup. Same thing with watermelon, or if you, again, I would not necessarily strongly portion size things like cucumbers or bell pepper or broccoli and stuff, especially if they're raw. You know, so you could have a whole cup of that, and it's probably going to have a minimal impact on your blood sugar. So let's talk about a little bit more things that can affect your blood sugar as far as eating is concerned. Caffeine can raise your blood sugar, so we want to be careful. You know, some people, even with just 1 cup of coffee, can see their blood sugar rise 20 points. So we want to see about what caffeine beverages and at what point they do tend to raise your blood sugar. So raising your blood sugar 20 points might not be a big deal for you, but it may raise it more and it might turn out to be a bigger deal. So kind of experimenting with that. Now, alcohol can both raise and lower your blood sugar. So, you know, normally the liver makes and stores glucose and releases glucose to maintain your blood sugar levels. But if you consume alcohol, it kind of takes over the liver. So it's going to be busy breaking down that alcohol. And so people's blood sugar tends to go down. So there's two things that I warn people about using alcohol. One is make sure that it doesn't interfere with any of your other medications. And if it does, then that's a big reason, please don't drink. And then the other thing is just to be aware. If you're going to drink, I encourage you to only drink with something after you've started eating something. Don't drink just on an empty stomach. Of course, we're going to drink in moderation and all those kind of things that you already know, so I'm not going to lecture you about that. But as far as diabetes is concerned, we want you to have a little bit of carbohydrate already in your blood so that when that alcohol takes over the liver and your blood sugar starts to go down, it doesn't go down to a dangerous level. But the other thing is, once the liver is finished processing that alcohol, then it's going to process your carbohydrates. And so what tends to happen, and it can happen just hours after you had that glass of wine, or it can happen even the next day, your blood sugar may rise. And again, it's not that you have to give it up completely, because I want you to have a good life. But we need to be aware that this is the impact, that I could have low blood sugars, but I could also have high blood sugars, and I'm going to need to react to those blood sugars and make sure that I can do what I need to do. Timing of your meals can make a difference. So, you know, sometimes it's good to have a bedtime snack and sometimes it's not. Eating later in the evening can have an impact on blood sugars. Sometimes having a smaller meal is fine. For me, I'm not terribly hungry when I get up in the morning. So I tend to not have a big breakfast. Don't get me wrong, I love a good brunch, but in my typical work day, I tend to eat something small. I might have a little bit of oatmeal, probably my go-to breakfast, so it's quick and easy. And since I'm on the road, a lot of hotels will have this available. Might be grabbing a yogurt or grabbing some cottage cheese. Just because with the dairy, it has a little bit of fat, a little bit of protein, a little bit of carbohydrate. So it gives me a little bit of what I need to start my day. And it makes it easier for me to grab something but not feel like I'm trying to stuff myself. But, you know, later on, you know, especially on the weekends, I like to have me a couple of eggs and those kind of things. So think about your meal timing, and you might experiment with it and see. People think I'm crazy because sometimes, like I said, we need a bedtime snack and sometimes we don't. So if you're eating one and your blood sugars are high in the morning, see if you eliminate that, see if that works. If you're not eating one and your blood sugars are high in the morning, go ahead and try eating a bedtime snack, because a couple of hours before we get up, so let's say you get up at 7, probably about 5 o'clock in the morning, your body's going to do a check and make sure that you have enough fuel in your body to get yourself up and get your day started, because you're going to need to get out of bed, get showered and dressed, and get your breakfast made. It's not like you have something to eat right there on your bedside table, and you have to eat that in order to even get out of bed. So you want to have enough fuel to get your day started. And so that's what your body will check and see that you have enough. If your body does not have sufficient glucose to do that, it will do a liver dump of that glucose. And so I always warn people about trusting their liver to manage their diabetes, because we can't control our liver, but we can control what we have to eat. So sometimes we ask people to, eat a bedtime snack, and that snack is there when they're waking up, and so they have sufficient fuel to get up in the morning. And so people think I'm crazy, but it really works. We can test their blood sugar in the morning and see that their blood sugar is actually lower than it was when they didn't eat a bedtime snack. So again, it's an individual thing, so you want to experiment with that kind of stuff. Dehydration, again, water is an important nutrient, a macronutrient. So making sure that you have sufficient water, that you're not dehydrated. We're coming on the summer season, and it's always more challenging with Texas and this, high temperatures to stay hydrated. So be very aware of your hydration level and drink some water. And then another thing that we're thinking about nowadays is your personal microbiome. Those are kind of little cooties in your gut that help process things. And people that have a healthier microbiome seem to process foods a little bit better. So it'll be interesting to watch in the coming years what happens with those. So the next self-care behavior is being active. Being active can be a wonderful tool in managing your diabetes. Light exercise even can lower your blood sugar. Some of my favorite studies that are coming out is they even are showing that just immediately after you eat, if you can do 10 minutes of walking around, it doesn't have to be huge, but if you did 10 minutes after breakfast, 10 minutes after lunch, 10 minutes after dinner, A, you're going to get 30 minutes a day of exercise in, and B, it's going to immediately help you start to process the foods that you just ate. And so don't discount light exercise. It's great to get some high intensity or even just moderate exercise if you can. One of the things that we have learned very quickly that I didn't recognize before I started working with people with disabilities is that chair exercises can kick your rear. They really do work. So don't feel like if you can't be mobile that you can't do something. So, I've done everything from chair boxing to, there's all kinds of chair exercise videos, or, sometimes you don't have to actually sit. You can just at least have a chair for stability, but they really can make a huge difference and get your heart rate up. Of course, it's great if you can lift some weights. They don't have to necessarily be heavy. You can use those bottles of water that you brought home to drink, use them as weights and lift them in different ways, but just getting your body moving, doing some stretching can really help. Now, the level of your fitness can make a difference. So a lot of times if you're just starting an exercise or activity program, you'll see a huge impact on your blood sugar. Your blood sugar may go down significantly in the 24 hours. But as you get fitter and fitter, it may not go down as much. So at the beginning, you might say, I've noticed that when I do my exercise that, my blood sugars tend to be about 40, 50 points lower than they were before. But then as you get more fit, they may only be 20, 30 points lower. And that's a good thing. I want you to think of it in a positive manner, that you are more fit, you're more capable, you're stronger. And so your level of fitness can make a difference. Some people find an impact on the time of day. So some people doing their exercise in the morning has a bigger impact on their blood sugars throughout the day. Some people, it's not. It needs to be later in the day. So figuring out, again, your body, what it does. You may need to take some food. For some people, again, there's a huge drop in their blood sugar, and they may need to have some food either before they start their workout or plan on having a snack immediately after, or at least a carb immediately after, you know, that can make a huge difference. And we are 2 hours, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Where we at right now? Are we
We're
over?
at 11.
You're moving
so-
into the second hour, Lisa.
Wait,
Oh,
maybe
we're
you
taking-
want to stop and take some questions, maybe?
Let's do
Okay.
that.
Yeah. Why don't we do that?
What questions do you have so far?
Good segue.
Will you guys remind them how to raise their hand?
Yes. So to
Yes.
raise your hand if you're on the phone. It is *9.
And if you're on the computer, it's Alt-Y. If anyone has a question, telephone or computer,
I
telephone
have a
*9.
question. This is Leslie. I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yes.
So, Lisa, if someone had a significant visual impairment and they also had diabetes, how important is it for them to check their blood sugars? And are there any tools that they can use if they can't actually see the whatever glucometer, whatever those are called? What are some ways that someone who has a pretty significant visual impairment can manage diabetes?
Well, I think that monitoring is one of the best things that people can do for their diabetes, because it gives you the information. Is your medication working? What impact is your activity or exercise having on your blood sugar? And how do individual foods? So I think everybody should have a monitor. The frequency is not necessarily, you know, there are people like with type 1 that might monitor 8-10 times a day. There's other people with type 2 that they're not on medications. Again, one of the things that is wonderful about 2020 is we have medications that other medications to use for diabetes. And one of the great things about some of those medications is they don't cause low blood sugars. So we don't have to know what your blood sugar is to protect you from having, you know, a low blood sugar. But it is still good to know to have one to use as your personal lab. Now, there are some talking meters on the market. One of the things that I hate is that often when they create a talking meter, they don't actually put it in the hands of somebody who's blind or deafblind. So the one that our agency currently recommends is the Prodigy Voice Meter, because it was designed with the help of the National Federation of the Blind. So from the time you insert the batteries, you can set it up, you can use it, you can access the memory, and it's got a place you can put a headset so you can keep your information private. So yes, that is always a good thing, the talking meters. There's also the Rely on Voice, and that came out in 2018. And the wonderful thing about that is it's available in any Walmart. I don't think it is quite as accessible as the Prodigy Voice, but it's close. It's good. It's still a good meter. But for the first time ever, somebody who is blind can walk into Walmart and pick up a meter, the Rely on Voice meter for $14, and a bottle of test strips for $9, and they can test their blood sugars. And so, you know, I'm glad that there's that available. I'm very skeptical about some of the meters that are issued that are talking meters. So, because the reality is they're not very useful. And even with the Prodigy Voice, they didn't consider our deafblind individuals. So there's no way to change the voice. So normally it's like one voice. And even I've noticed over the years that the highest level of volume 7, is not as loud as it was in previous versions. So that's some of the things that I think about. before there was not talking meters available in an open market. So it was always kind of challenging to put your hands on a meter, and still challenging for test strips and stuff like that. Let me tell you, Amazon is your friend, and Prodigy Voice has some of the cheapest test strips. On Amazon, you can get them for between $6 and $7 a bottle of test strips versus the $9 for the Rely On Voice. But, if you go on vacation and realize you left your meter, hey, there's probably a Walmart in Galveston you can go in and get what you need. So yes, monitoring can be an important piece, and it is available. There's also something new called the continuous glucose monitors. You may have seen them advertised on TV. There's a couple of different types, and some of them will send the result directly to a receiver or your iPhone. And that can be a great feature, because you can access it through your iPhone, the information through your iPhone, or it can also, you can set it up in some cases, depending on the product, to where your phone can notify, you can choose other people. So maybe you want your husband to know that when your blood sugar is running low, and it can let them know, and so they can help intervene if necessary. Others, you have to go ahead and swipe either your phone or the receiver near the sensor, and then it gets the data. But the wonderful thing, and I think in the next 5 years, we'll probably switch from doing finger stick testing to primarily doing continuous glucose monitors, because they not only give you, basically take your blood sugar every 5 minutes, and they can give you some trends. And there can be a big difference. If your blood sugar was 110 on your blood glucose meter, you might not interact. But at the same time, if it was 110 and going down quickly, then it might be important for you to go ahead and have a snack, or at least plan a snack, start making your meal or something like that. Or if it's 110 and going up quickly, and you're like, wait a minute, it shouldn't be going up right now. Why is it going up? It gives you a chance to problem solve. So there's some wonderful monitoring tools out there.
Lisa, one question I encounter a lot from my clients is it's regarding getting the actual blood onto the strip, and knowing and having confidence that that one did that correctly.
And honestly, that is not an easy task, but I will tell you some of my best recommendations are, first, making sure you prep for that finger stick. In the past, we have recommended that you use alcohol, and we don't recommend that anymore. If you have access to soap and water, go wash your hands. That's the best thing you could do. So wash them under warm, not hot water. You want to get that friction going under the water. And, part of the reason we do want to clean the finger, because just because you haven't eaten or touched food doesn't mean that there isn't like something with glucose in it that's gotten on a doorknob that you happen to touch, or you didn't realize, and that can impact your results. And so we want you to know what the actual result from that individual drop is. Now, I will also say that each time you squeeze your finger, it's going to have a different amount of interstitial fluid in that blood, may have a little bit different amount of glucose in it. So there can be changes in that. So by washing our hands, we can really eliminate some of those factors. And then after you've washed them, dry them with a towel, or a paper towel, or a rag or something. And again, the friction from that will help increase the circulation in your fingers. Some people find it helpful to either shake their hands, or at least put their hands below their heart for a minute, so that they can get the blood going to those fingers. And then I use a method, and I call it the thumb method. So I take my thumb and I mark what finger I'm going to lance. And so I actually put that on the finger. I could put it on my ring finger, on either side of my ring finger, and then I'll put my lancing device right up to that thumb and right on that finger, and then I'll release the trigger to actually lance my finger. And then I remove it, but I remove the lancing device, but leave your thumb where it is, because I want to identify where that blood is. And then I kind of go underneath and do the squeezing. You don't want to squeeze close to where you lanced, but a little bit underneath. We call it milking the finger. And that's going to help that blood. I actually do not milk the finger. I usually, as soon as I lance it, I want to count to 5 and then start milking the finger. You want, I find that if you let the blood kind of go back to that area, then I actually get a better drop of blood. And then at that point, I will pick up my meter with the test strip. I will sweep try to sweep the blood. So I kind of put the test strip against my thumb. Of course, I've kept it in the same place, so I know pretty close to where I lanced. And then I sweep up, and most of the time that will work. And it doesn't work perfectly every time. So sometimes I have to sweep again, but just leaving my thumb as a marker for where exactly I'm going to lance, and it gives me kind of a general area to identify where that blood should be. But I also want you to remember that sometimes you don't bleed as well. So sometimes, hopefully doing that hand washing and some of those techniques will work. But B, it is a machine, and sometimes it just gives errors. And people who are sighted have those errors as well. And I think sometimes when you have a disability, there's a tendency to blame the disability for anything that goes wrong. And it might not be you. It might be the machine.
That's a great point. That's a really good point.
You know, I just think we have to be patient and understanding. When people are first learning to use it, it's hard, but I do find people who have had, you know, a visual impairment and diabetes for a while, they get very good at getting those things because they've had so much practice. So just keep in mind that practice does make perfect.
Awesome. We have a couple of hands up. Go ahead, Megan.
Megan, are you there?
You may have to unmute on your end. I unmuted on ours, but you still might be muted.
Sorry, I pressed stay
Okay.
muted. I'm bothered. Two things. One, intermittent fasting. I know it's kind of like a trend right now, especially those of us who have diabetes. And I kind of do it not on purpose. I stop having my last meal around no later than 6:30, and don't eat again until 9, 10 o'clock the next day. And I notice that my blood sugars are pretty good. You know, they're like 109, 110. But then I heard you mention like having a snack at midnight and then checking your blood sugar would be lower. And I'm wondering if the intermittent fasting is giving me false readings. So that's my first question. And then my second question is, I know you're not a doctor, but I've been a type 2 diabetic since I was 13. Lost some of my vision due to diabetic retinopathy last year. So I've had diabetes for about 20, 21 years. And I'm curious, did I make myself blind by not completely getting rid of diabetes? Because I've been told if you lose enough weight and you eat barely nothing, you can get rid of your diabetes and you'll be fine. So those are my two things.
Okay. Well, first, I think your intermittent fasting, if that's working for you, I would just keep testing my blood sugar, and you might test them at bedtime, see what your blood sugars are at bedtime. If you get up to go to the restroom at 3 o'clock in the morning, test your blood sugar, see what it is at that time. See if there's any unnoticed highs or lows. But if you're waking up, I mean, 100, 110 sounds like a good blood sugar to me.
Yeah, it's fantastic. But I was like, is this real or unreal? I'm not sure what to believe. But okay, cool. I'll just check in more often then.
Yes, and the other thing that I would have you check, and we haven't discussed monitoring, except now this is really kind of our monitoring session. But the other thing that I always like to look at, it for, especially for people with type 2, they are often good. Their blood sugars are fine right before their meals, but it's 2 hours after their meal that their blood sugar hasn't come down sufficiently. So 2 hours after your first bite of food, your blood sugar should be under 180, definitely, and ideally under 140. And if we can get it down to what it was close to before you ate, that's where the sweet spot is. So that's where I say monitoring's your friend, because it can tell you, do you not have enough medication, and so those blood sugars are not coming down, or is that just a particular meal? And it can be a healthy meal. I mean, I have a slide that I use. I have a doctor friend that has type 1 diabetes, and he shares his continuous glucose monitor, and it showed him eating a bowl of turkey soup, and his blood sugars got up to 400. That's crazy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And doctor, highly educated man, he knows how to manage his own diabetes, and he was eating all the right things, but there was other things going on. And you can eat and do all the right things, still have a abnormal blood sugar. And so that's why I don't judge. Numbers are just data. They don't tell me how wonderful you are, or they don't think about you as an individual. They're just data for us to respond to. And that is his point is, look, I was eating this, and I take my insulin before, and I counted my carbs, and I gave a little bit more insulin after, and it ended up by taking 4 injections of insulin for him to turn his blood sugar around in that situation. So it's a matter of figuring out your own body and what's impacting it and what's not. And so don't take others' diabetes advice. Use your monitor as your personal lab and figure it out. Figure out what's right for you and what is working for you to keep your blood sugar under control. Now, and I appreciate you talking about how you feel like you could have prevented your blindness. And you know what? It's complex. And we're still trying to figure things out. So do we know that people who have managed their blood sugars have less complications of diabetes? Absolutely. There's absolute evidence of that. So it is possible that, if we had done things differently in the past, but that you might not have had the blindness.
Okay.
There's no sense in looking back at that. All we can do is the best we know. You were 13 years old, and that's one of the things that we have to work with teenagers is they have a right to be a teenager, but how do you do that? How do you be a teenager and do all the crazy things that teenagers do, and still take care of yourself? Right. Home, and the first thing that your loved one says is, what were your blood sugars like today? I mean, kids hate that. What is your blood sugar like today? Did you do all your homework? What does your teacher have to say? Those are not the questions you want to be asked. But that's reality, and that's probably was your life for years,
Yes.
need to forgive yourself for being a teenager, because that happened. You know, teenagers and young adults don't always they don't always see that there's going to be limitations. Even grown adults don't always see what the repercussion is. And that's one of the problems with diabetes is I can tell you, do that and you're going to be healthier over the long run. But it sure would be nicer if I told people, look, if you walk around the block twice and come back, you're going to have lost a half a pound. You know what? Y'all would all be walking around the block all the time. You know, we don't get those kind of fast rewards. Instead, we think, if I eat healthy, if I'm more active, if I do the self-care behaviors that I know I should do, then I'm going to at least maintain my weight. I might lose some weight, even if it's a half a pound a week or every 2 weeks, or, you know, those are long term and that's hard to stick with. So I just thank you for sharing that story. I just think that there's a lot of people that feel that like they brought something on themselves. And A, you were genetically predisposed to have diabetes. B, you did the best you could at every given age. And C, we don't have all the answers in the medical world. So who knows that even if you did all of the right things, that you wouldn't have been one of those people that had gotten it anyway. So to me,
That's a good question.
It's about let's do the best we can from here forward.
Thank you,
Awesome.
Megan.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
I think we have another question, Rebecca.
Yes, we have a couple of other hands up. Let's see. Wendy, go ahead.
Okay. Now I can't find my phone. Hello. Hello?
Hi.
Go ahead, Wendy.
Oh, okay. I was just wondering because there's some medications that I am on, particularly steroids, it tends to run my blood sugar up.
Right.
But how effective is that A1C test? Because whenever they run it, it's always good.
Your blood sugar is good, or I mean, your A1C is good, even though you're on steroids?
Yes.
Okay. Well, the A1C is a wonderful test for an average, but it is an average. So there may be times that the steroids are increasing your blood sugar and you may be very high, but I'd also worry that there may be times that your blood sugar is very low and it could average into a very good number. So, you know, we have to pay attention. So the hemoglobin A1C, for those of you that don't know, hemoglobin is red blood cells basically. As they are going through your body, they pick up a little bit of glucose, kind of like a lint roller picks up hair. And so everybody's got some that will that lint roller, but if you have a dog or if you had a bunch yourself, you may pick up a lot more with that lint roller than the average person. And so the more glucose that's in your blood, the more that it's going to pick up. And the red blood cells live for 3 months, approximately. So it could be 90 days, it could be 80 days, it could be 110 days that your particular red blood cells live. So again, it's very individual, and that's why there can be variances. So it's great that you are not having the impact from the steroids, and so, but the A1C is a great test, but it's not a perfect test. So
that's what I was thinking. Yeah, because one doctor, I mean, I called because I couldn't figure out why I was so sleepy at one point, and then when I checked my blood sugar, it was like 400, and the nurse goes, "Oh, well, it's nothing to worry about." Well, like when I eat, is it better to take it before I eat or after I eat?
Not knowing the specific steroids, I would ask a pharmacist or or your doctor. If you know, I really like speaking to pharmacists because they know so much about the individual medicines. And so, you know, when they ask you if you want to consult when you go pick up your medicines, say yes. You know?
Yeah, well, mostly I'm with my blood sugar, like after I eat, it should be like, and what range is the normal range? Is everybody the same, or is it according to your weight or something?
Well, you can, that's another question for your doctor, because sometimes because of your medical situation, they might have a higher goal for your A1C or your blood sugars. But for on average, most people should have a blood sugar fasting, meaning you haven't eaten in 8 hours, between like 80 and 120. You know, so ideally around 100. And then 2 hours after you eat, it should be under 180 and ideally under 140.
Okay.
But 2 hours after you eat, not after your first bite of food. So, you know, if you're Italian, y'all sit there and eat for 3 hours, your blood sugar should still be coming down just because you're still eating.
So 140.
Yeah, getting it under 140.
No higher than 180.
Correct.
But 140 or less.
Right.
After eating. And the fasting should be how much?
You know, think about it, keeping it around 100. If it could be, you know, if it's a little more or less, then it's fine. But, you know, not more than 120 fasting is what we prefer generally.
Okay.
But again, I want everybody to think about talking to their doctors about what their personal ranges should be, because, you know, your health might be different from other people, from the general population. And so sometimes our goals have to be a little bit different. And what they're going to take in is your lab work, all the complications that you might have, or your disabilities, what medications you're on. So like being on a steroid, they might not be as strict about how low it should be, because they know that it's not you, it's the medication that is causing some high blood sugars.
Okay.
Thanks, Wendy. Good questions.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anthony, it's been a while. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Lisa, I do want to commend you on bringing up a lot of vital points, but there is a difference between seeing your primary care doctor and your endocrinologist to see one. The endocrinologist will put you on a tighter regimen because primary doctors have their own ideas and feelings when it comes to people with diabetes. The other thing I wanted to say was, because I use a continuous glucose monitoring system, and there are a difference between the Libre and the Dexcom G6 that I use. The Libre, you have to scan every 8 hours. If you don't, you're going to have gaps.
Yeah.
And then the G6, where I use, it has alarms built into it. So if you're high or low or very low, it's going to go off. And you can also have people follow you, family members and friends, and so forth. Also, if you can't get to the doctor, and I believe you can do the same thing with the Libre app, I believe, and I know you can do it with the Dexcom, you can actually send your information to your doctor, and your doctor can look at your readings. The one also thing, which is a ploy, the people at Freestyle, the Libre folks say that, oh, you don't need the finger stick. Yes, you do need the finger stick, whether you're using the Libre or you're using the Dexcom, for two reasons. While you replace your sensor and is getting acclimated to your body or warming up, you can't use the sensor to check your blood sugar. So you are forced to check your blood sugar using, checking your finger and pricking your finger and using a test strip. Or there could be an issue with your sensors, or you may be getting erroneous readings, or you need to have that backup to be able to check your blood sugar using a finger stick. But I have trouble seeing, and you brought that vital question up, trying to explain to people, or actually Sean and Kevin did, how do you check your blood sugar if you can't see? And a lot of times I was wasting test strips and this and that and the other thing, and they do tend to get expensive. But that is my 2 cents. I do have a question. I'm not sure if you're going to talk about it, but sleep schedule. sleeping habits is a frustrating thing for me because I can't sleep and it's messing me up at night or during the day. And it keeps me from taking my medicine and eating, and it messes up my blood sugar left and right. So I'm hoping to be within a week or so to be on that non-24 prescription to see if that's going to reset my body clock and put me back into where I need to be more mindful and for bettering structure and getting out and doing what I need to do and being
Okay.
trying to live a normal life. But with that, I'm going to give it back to y'all. Thanks.
Right. Well, thank you. Yeah, I think if you have an opportunity to see an endocrinologist because that specializes in diabetes, they can give you a lot. They can fine tune your diabetes a lot better than a PCP can. PCPs are doing the very best they can. And CGMs, again, there's different models. There's even more than those two that you mentioned. And they all have different features. So you can talk to a diabetes specialist about the features and how they work. They're not fully available, but there's a lot of people that those. Now, sleeping habits, thank you for bringing that up because that's one factor that does affect your blood sugar. So a lot of people will find that they need a lot more insulin, 25–30% more insulin on days that they're not getting sufficient sleep. And their blood sugars are a lot more variable during those days. So, you have to do the best you can. And that non-24 is something that we need in the blindness world to be aware of, that it could be just because you're not getting the light cues and so your circadian rhythms are off. It's not nothing you did wrong. It's just the nature of your disability that is impacted. Now, what I recommend is that you develop a sleep hygiene routine. And, when your kids are 3, 4, you have a sleep program for them. So, and that might consist of they take their bath and they get in their pajamas and then they come in and watch a video and then you take them to the bed and you read them 2 books and then you say a prayer and then the lights go out and there's a whole process to getting them so that they know it isn't just we switch from being active to, now you need to be in bed. There's a whole process to get them there. And, most of the time, maybe you get them to bed between 7 and 8 o'clock, but you are out at your parents' house until 9 o'clock. You still, when you get home, put them through that same process, maybe a little faster than normal, maybe a shorter video, maybe some faster stories. But you still put them through that same process in order for them to get to bed. And we think that we don't need that as adults, but you really do need, and it doesn't need to be an hour. It can be 15 minutes. So for me, I, go in and wash my face, brush my teeth, comb my hair, get in my pajamas. So I'm physically ready for bed. That, starts to really help me. Some people like to listen to, Audible or some kind of book. Use a book or something to listen to, but set it with that sleep timer so that it goes off in whatever you decide, 15, 30 minutes, whatever is right for you to calm down. We usually want to get away from our screens. So whether that's our phones or the TV or something that, may keep us up or may have different noise levels. We want something a little bit more consistent. And then when that goes off, you can go ahead and go to, turn over and try to go to sleep. If you're not successful in going to sleep after 30 minutes, then get up, go into a different room, do something that's not going to get you fully awake or, revved up in any way. So again, probably not the phone and not the TV, and then go back and try again when you start to feel tired. Once you start having some kind of routine, it really helps. For me, I do that, but I also travel. My job is 75% travel. And so I also use sleep shades and because I'm always in a different hotel room. And I use sleep shades whether I'm home or on the road. And my body over the years has been trained so that when I put those sleep shades on, just the physical act of putting them on lets my body know that I'm serious about sleeping. So you've got to find that same kind of sleep hygiene. There is on the iPhone, there is under the clock a feature called bedtime. And I've really got to enjoy using that. So when I go to bedtime, I can set what time I want to wake up and how many hours of sleep I need. And I can set a reminder, and it, for me, it just gives this little jingle, and it's nice and gentle, that says, and I have it set for 15 minutes before I want to go to sleep in order to get my 8 hours or whatever is appropriate for you. Most adults, between 6 to 9 hours is the amount of sleep, and there's a sweet spot for your body. So some people do very well at 6 hours, and some people that would be way too little. So you've got to find out how long you need to sleep during the day or during the night in order to feel your best. If you undersleep or oversleep, you have issues. But with the bedtime app, it gives me 15 minutes to really make sure that I calm myself down. And then I put on my sleep shades, and I'm generally asleep within 10 minutes after I put on my sleep shades. And then in the morning, it has a nice, gentle songs that it can wake you up with. And I have found them to be much more comforting than the old of my alarm clock. So there's things like that that you might try as well. So does that help with the sleep habits?
That's really good. Good hygiene to think of, especially when it comes to sleep. Yeah, we could all benefit from that. Rebecca, are you with us still?
I am.
Okay. Are we having some Zoom challenges?
Well, I just Googled it, and it looks like Zoom itself is having some challenges today.
Okay. So Zoom's having a Monday on a Wednesday. Right. Any other questions?
We don't have any other hands raised. Oh, here, there's Anthony. Oh, hold on.
I got
Anthony.
one more. I'm sorry. I got one more thing I forgot to say.
Okay.
Stress does hamper your blood sugars, whether it's physical stress, being sick or have a fever or whatever, pneumonia, whatever, or mental stress that has, behavioral health, whatever, has a major effect on your blood sugars as well, whether it's high or low. That's all I wanted to say, other than food.
Yeah, that's what I was going to, that was one of the big factors that I was going to mention was stress. Stress will raise your blood sugar faster than any food you could possibly put in your mouth. So it is really important that you have some stress management techniques and that you honor those stress management or respect that when your body's sick, whether it's the common cold or if you're going through any kind of eye procedure, if you're having that, the days that you're having that injection might be extremely stressful, and your blood sugars, you might not be able to manage them as well in those days. It's just that cortisol release, the adrenaline is raising your blood sugar. So we want to make sure that we honor that.
Yeah, good point. Good point, Anthony. We are coming up here about 11:40. We have maybe a few additional folks that have joined us. I don't know if there's any other questions or comments here. Rebecca, anyone's hand is raised?
We are all clear
Okay.
for the moment.
All right. Yeah, for the moment, right?
Yeah.
One question, maybe to just kind of wrapping things up here with diabetes, is what are some warning signs related to diabetic retinopathy that people should be aware of or
Okay. Unfortunately, most people don't get any warning signs. And in fact, most people with, or let me say 70% of people with type 2 diabetes have some diabetic retinopathy upon diagnosis. So if you had a wonderful practitioner, they should have referred you to whoever diagnosed you with diabetes would have referred you to the eye doctor immediately and then told you you need to go for your annual checkups to see what's going on. And 70% of people, when they go for that, even that first checkup, they have some bleeding in the eye or some damage in the eye. And maybe it's not to the point that of blindness, but there is some damage. And if we can get blood sugars under control, we hope to, heal up what damage is back there in the back of the eye, in the retina, or prevent anything additional from happening. So unfortunately, there's not a lot of signs and symptoms for that. So that is why maintaining all those doctor's appointments. So, I didn't make it through all 7 care behaviors, but reducing risk, that is the reason that that is one of the self-care behaviors. Because people with diabetes need to see an eye doctor on a regular basis. They need to go to the dentist on a regular basis. The sugar sticks to the teeth and gums and wears out the teeth and gums faster than anybody else. So, it's important to practice all that oral hygiene stuff as well. But seeing your dentist on a regular basis, they may be able to fix something before it's in a big problem and you're losing teeth and losing gums and all of those kind of things. There's just an awful lot under reducing risk, making sure you don't smoke and that your drinking is moderate if it's not prevented from your medication, those kind of things. So there's a lot that can be done for that. But unfortunately, I wish we had better signs, but most people, that they wake up and they're having all of a sudden vision issues.
Right. Yeah, I've seen that happen sometimes in working with clients over the years. Lisa, if people wanted to know more information about what you've discussed today, where would you direct them? Are there some resources online, or there's some resources that you have?
Well, I do participate and I just look. I don't respond because I consider myself a professional. There is a great National Federation of the Blind has a great, what do you call it? Listserv where you can, and people are always posting some really great questions, and they do a really good job of answering those questions. And even if it's not the advice I would give as a professional, I think it's good practical advice. So I think the NFB has done a very good job of helping people with diabetes and blindness. The other site that I like a lot that is a site for individuals is called Diatribe, and DIATRIBE. And again, they're for the most part, sometimes they'll have guest health practitioners, but for the most part, it is people living with diabetes. But they do go, someone will go to the Association of Diabetes Care and Education Specialists annual conference. Someone will go to the American Diabetes Conference. They'll go to international conferences or technology conferences. And they come back and they bring their personal perspective. And I think we need the science and the information, but I also think that some of the best ideas come from people who actually live with the disease. And so I really like Diatribe as a high quality. I think they put a lot of thought in. Again, I don't always agree, but maybe it's because my diabetes varies and the people that I work with, it varies for them. But if it works for you, if it does what you need to do, that's what's important. So it's just like blindness. I mean, different people choose different phones, different computers, different software, different magnifiers, different canes. It's your choice.
Exactly, and that's excellent excellent point. Again, so we're all about helping people, to have the ability to make informed choices. But if you don't know the options, it's harder to do that. Any other questions or comments out there, guys?
Dina has her hand up. Go ahead, Dina.
Okay, hi, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, so so Lisa, you're a diabetes educator. Would you recommend that people work with an educator, and how would they find one? Also, if they live in different parts of the state, not just in the Fort Worth area.
Okay. Well, so for those of you from Fort Worth, John Peter Smith has a diabetes program, and that free classes, and they do give you discount coupons. I think it's $20 off of medications for up to 3 classes if you attend. But there are programs. I like to go to either the Association of Diabetes Care and Education Specialists. So it's diabeteseducator.org. And they have you can look up a diabetes program there, or you can look up on the American Diabetes Association is the other program that refers, and you can look, sometimes you can just Google diabetes education in McAllen, Texas, wherever you live. That can get you very close to finding a diabetes program that might work for you, and stuff. But sometimes the health departments, like in San Antonio, the health department does some diabetes classes. They do them all over the city of San Antonio in different places, and they've even had them at like apartment complexes, because there was enough people that were interested at the apartment complex, and they let them use their gathering room and stuff. So you might be able to find some free programs with that. There's getting to be more programs online, and I can provide some resources for some online programs that in case people want to participate. I can't guarantee, online. It's a new world, so people are going to get better at making them accessible, but online programs are somewhat new, but I can provide some resources for that as well. So Kevin, I'll send those to you.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Good question, Dina. Any other questions, Rebecca? Anyone else have their hand raised?
Yes, Presley has a question.
Hi, I'm not diabetic just yet, but I do have a very limited menu. I'm 16 and I'm like the pickiest person in the world. I have a very limited menu consisting of pastas and eggs and oatmeal. How can I, and I'm afraid to branch out and try new foods. How can I overcome my fear and just add more variety to my foods on a daily basis so I don't get diabetes?
Well, what I tell people is just try something out and give yourself permission not to like it. But when you do, figure out what you don't like about that. So, you probably have a good number of friends that, and, if they wouldn't mind you taking a bite, if they've ordered something different that you normally wouldn't try, ask them, can you have a bite? And then decide, do I like this or do I not? And it's okay when you figure out what you don't like. And I'll give you an example. I used to think that I didn't like broccoli, okay? But what I figured out is I either like it raw or I like it fully cooked. I don't like broccoli in most restaurants because it's that al dente, and the texture was getting to me. And so I couldn't even get past the texture. So I would a lot of times have it, right at restaurants is where I would be trying it. And I was like, ooh, why do people eat this? I did have people say, I was at a party and they had the crudité platter and, well, you got to have some of this broccoli. It's really good. And I was like, oh, that is really good. Or there's a salad that one of my friends make with raw broccoli, and almonds and a dressing on it, and it's delicious. And I figured out, okay, maybe I do like raw broccoli, and that made me willing to try cooked. But then when it was roasted and it was all soft and everything, I was like, okay, this is delicious. Figure that out for yourself. Figure out, expand yourself, and just put some, try it in different formats. And if you don't like it, just say, what do I not like? It's too salty, it's too soft, it's too hard, it's too, it sticks in my teeth. It doesn't matter what it is, just this is what I don't like about it. And then you can find some other foods that can kind of be similar, and that you might find that you like those. And the other thing I'll say is your tastes are going to change over the years, and what you like today and what you're going to like 5 years from now may be different, because your nutritional needs are going to be different as well.
All right.
So even if you try it today and you don't like it, try it 5 years from now and see if you do.
Okay, cool.
Thanks, Presley. Great question. All right. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up there today. Lisa, thank you so much for visiting with us and sharing with us. You've been very helpful and shared with us a lot of good tips and good healthy information. So thank you.
Can I say one more thing?
You certainly can.
I have a colleague that is doing a research study on diabetes and cardiovascular or heart disease with and without disabilities. She has, she's blind herself, and she's doing some research. And so she's looking for some participants. So if you know of somebody that does have heart disease and diabetes, if they could, you could get a hold of me even, and I can give that you can earn $30. The study, it takes less than an hour to complete, and it would really help her with her research. And I'm really excited about a lot of the things that she's doing, because there's not enough research about diabetes and disability, and that's been her focus, and we need to help her do her job.
Okay. All right. Yeah, no, I got you. Yeah, for sure. So if anybody interested, reach out to me and I'll get you in touch with Miss Lisa and go from there. So